Hi everyone, welcome to another album related episode. So another I was trying to think of the best way to say that, but basically, the continuation of this album that made me series that I've been doing. So I want to take a look at this album. This came out in '84, Like a Virgin by Madonna, and it was interesting for me because I got into Madonna at a point where I was just sort of in I don't know if it's a crossroads, but it's sort of deviation musically. So '84, I was starting to get into bands like Big Country and U2 and more rock bands that weren't considered to be necessarily hard rock bands or metal bands, that sort of stuff. So I was sort of coming out of a hard rock, heavy metal jag mixed in with NWBM, the new wave of British heavy metal. And then around about 83 into 84, I got more interested in guitar-based bands that didn't really fall neatly into those categories. And in amongst all of that, I started to check out Madonna, partly because it was was being played a lot on the radio, but also when I was out and about with friends, sort of either driving up on various trips places or to nightclubs. This was often a popular cassette to have on in the car on the drive around the motorways in the UK to get various places. So it's probably my first sort of foray into more dance music. It's interesting. We're going to look at post-disco. I thought it was more interesting to look at that than necessarily dance pop. So when we get to the end of the video, or deeper into the video, we'll start to look at some of the artists that fall under the post-disco category. So this, I would say, is my step-on album for the artist. If we look at an album listing somewhere, let's have a look. Yeah. So what I tended to do with Madonna is just sort of skip over albums a little bit. So subsequently, I have gone back through in the era of streaming and retrospectively listened to these albums. But this was the sort of step-on album around about 84. And what it had in terms of, making me or shaping my musical taste, is probably just made me want to listen to more Madonna. I don't think it necessarily made me go off down a dance pop or a post-disco rabbit hole straight away. But no doubt we'll see some artists that I listen to retrospectively. Probably again with this, you'll notice a bit of a pattern here. Often with me, I get a little bit more interested in the origins when I discover an artist rather than sort of necessarily doing anything laterally. I have this tendency to sort of go, look backwards and say, okay, well, that's interesting. What was the earlier stuff like? And if there isn't any earlier stuff, what was that artist influenced by? So I bought this, then bought this fairly soon after. I remember a friend had this and I ended up hearing it so much I didn't actually bother buying it. And then went straight on to buying this. And then also I sort of filled in, there's a number of interesting other albums. Let me just see if I can find them. So I bought this, You Can Dance, in 87 when it came out. And this, I really like, the Immaculate Collection. And also this, when it came out in 95. So there was that going on in the background. And then I had a bit of a gap and bought Ray of Light. And then Confessions on a Dance Floor. So I kept sort of skipping over certain stuff, but I always heard a lot of this, like music, particularly music, some of the tracks off of there on the radio. And then again, like I said, once we got into the streaming age, the consumption's slightly different then. So this would have been the last physical album I bought by Madonna. Everything else I listened to either consequently as it's come out or retrospectively on Spotify. So let's just see, using the various API shenanigans and other things, as to what I might uncover and what might jog my memory. Superficially, I would say, apart from Madonna making me want to listen to more Madonna, probably the next lateral artist to Madonna is probably someone like, I don't know, Janet Jackson, maybe early Whitney, although I don't think I bought any Whitney albums. Just trying to remember if I owned the second or the third album at any point, but I certainly had some later. So Control by Janet Jackson, I remember buying that. So let's have a look if I've done an interrogation on the Gemini. So Gemini Similar Artist Generator. So a lot of usual suspects here, but interestingly, not many artists that I've listened to in any great depth. I had a Janet Jackson album, Control. I listened to Lady Gaga, mainly streaming, but all of these I don't really own any like physical tracks for. I've listened to a couple of Beyonce albums. I've certainly listened to Rihanna. In fact, I probably have. Well, I may not have an album because I've listened to it more in the streaming era through Spotify. But I did. There was a CD single I bought actually, and then I think in the last few years I listened to a few Rihanna albums retrospectively, but nothing else here really springs to mind. So it'll be interesting to see when we get like more of a retrospective look at this, who I sort of recognise. Okay, so again, if we do a search on Last FM API search, just seeing what bubbles to the top. Interesting top albums through their Scrobbler. So we have that. Ray of Light, Like a Prayer. Okay. Just trying to think, what are my favourite tracks? Material Girl, Like a Prayer, Like a Virgin. What's that other one I really like? Get Into the Groove, that's it. Crazy For You, I think, the slow one. I always remember from nightclubs, those ones. Wow. Sophie Ellis Sophie Ellis Bextor. Didn't she do a lot of session work on dance tracks as well, I think? Cyndi Lauper, I'm pretty sure I owned a C-shirt. Yeah, She's So Unusual. I remember we used to play this a lot. There was a jukebox in a pub we used to go down to back in the days when people used to go down to pubs in the UK at lunchtime when they were at work. Because where I worked, there was a pub within, like, literally, short walking distance. And they had a really cool jukebox. And I remember we used to put this on quite a bit when it came out. I remember this being a big hit. Danny Minogue. I do have I think I have a Danny Minogue CD single from somewhere, or maybe I had on a cassette. I don't know. There was one track she released, probably not quite as well known as Kylie. Lady Gaga, maybe mostly, yeah, definitely on streaming services. Oh, it's a pretty good playlist. Okay, let's dive a bit deeper into genre history. Okay, now here's some names, definitely. So yeah, Chic, Sister Sledge. Yeah, I remember them firsthand, and when we used to go to the school discos, they definitely played a lot of Chic back in the day. And I have at least one of their albums on CD, actually. Oh yeah, Good Times. And of course, yeah, this road back to Kraftwerk as well influenced a lot of people. And of course, you've got Giorgio Moroder. Now, I was listening to, what was it the other day? I was listening to the album that he did with, was it Donna Summer? I think. Oh, here we go, yeah. Sly and the Family Stone. Wow. Precursors to post-disco. Yeah, I've definitely listened to that album. I may even have that on CD. Certainly I have this. Probably on several different formats now. Although not my favourite by them. I think my favourite's Trans Europe Express, actually. Yeah. I would say, yeah, Chic are pretty much essential listening. Also, from a guitar perspective, I mean, the guitar work on their albums is really good. I definitely need to listen to more of Giorgio Moroder's soundtrack stuff, I think. Actually, that's the one I think I have, thinking about it. It's Maggot Brain. I'm trying to remember which Sly and the Family Stone album has... what's that track? Is it Family Affair? Yeah, I'm not too good on remembering the tracks off of certain albums. Lucky Star by Madonna. That's a great track. It's an interesting playlist. Okay, let's have a look. A bit of more of a thinking request. So we get other things coming into the mix, like Public Image Limited as well. So with some of these earlier artists, I think definitely I was aware of and listening to, but I suppose as a result of me, obviously getting more disposable income and also starting to go down that post-disco pop rabbit hole, is then, listening a bit deeper. I would say I didn't properly listen to Kraftwerk until probably the 2000s. But some of the other bands here, probably a little bit earlier. Certainly Chic a lot earlier. I've never really listened to that much James Brown, funnily enough. And I've listened to Metal Box and the previous album. It's interesting because of the dub connection. I have listened to a little bit of Lee Scratch Perry, because sometime I think in the 80s, 90s I got quite into reggae, particularly Black Uhura and Sly and Robbie, particularly as like a backing as session musicians, and of course that was their band, I think. But they were on so many records, and then I did go down a bit of a dub rabbit hole, alongside sort of buying a number of the Trojan artist CDs as well. Yeah, this is something that sometimes gets forgotten about, is these funk-influenced post-punk bands, which often bridge a gap. So bands like A Certain Ratio. Yeah, and of course Michael Jackson, Off the Wall. And the other thing is interesting with producers, I don't know if you saw, the producer for Like a Virgin was indeed Nile Rodgers. But then you get other names come up on the producer side of things, and we've seen Giorgio Moroder, but other sort of luminaries as well. So Quincy Jones. Interesting, B-52s are name checked as well. So you get this sort of danceable new wave, I suppose, that spills into it as well. Oh, of course, Prince. Not listened to a ton of Prince. I had Purple Rain, and what was that other one? The double album. Sign of the Times? I think that might be the one I'm thinking of. Oh yeah, Grace Jones. Awesome artist. Yeah, pretty cool list here. And of course, yeah, New Order, because they were fairly heavily influenced mid-career. So they were influenced both by Kraftwerk, and then mid-career they got influenced by disco and electro as well. So that's pretty interesting. I was trying to remember the DJ that they sort of got involved with for a period of time. Was it around the time of Confusion, I think I'm thinking of? So yeah, interesting list. It makes me want to put this list together, actually. And that was suggested when I ran these prompts through the... this is using Google Gemini in thinking mode through the API. I've not really listened to much Rick James either. Yeah. I should check out the album. Actually, I was lucky enough to see Prince live. So I'm just thinking actually who I've seen live at it. So I saw Prince live sometime in the 2010s. I can't remember exactly when. He played Halifax, the big hockey rink in town, which would now be the Scotia Centre. I don't know what it was called back then, but it's the same building. Can't think if I've seen anybody else. Don't think so. I did see... Wait, what was it now? I'm trying to think of the name of the artist that sang on the track War. Edwin someone. I actually saw him play live at that Crawley Leisure Centre or somewhere. Yeah, back in that must have been the 80s probably. Yeah, I can't remember the context. Anyway, there we have it. I don't know if you can hear Mav is crying to get into the filming here. So I'll wrap this up. Thanks once again for watching and listening. Bye for now, and I will catch you in a future episode.